The Taliban fighters had no idea the woman pouring coffee was anything but a nurse. When mortars fell at 0200 and half the soldiers went down, someone needed to man the sniper nest. Her hands found the Barrett M82 like greeting an old friend. A single shot echoed, then stunned silence. Slowly, every soldier on the roof turned to stare. Who the hell was this woman?
Forward Operating Base Viper sat in the Kunar province like a scar on the landscape. Concrete barriers, prefab structures, and razor wire carved into the mountainside. Sarah Mitchell stepped off the supply Humvee at 0640 hours, her boots hitting packed dirt. Civilian clothes, jeans, thermal jacket, hiking boots, a small duffel over her shoulder. Just a wife visiting her husband. The guard at the gate barely glanced at her ID. Young, maybe 22, eyes red from overnight watch. "Captain Mitchell's in the TOC," he said. "Second building past the armory." She nodded and walked into the base. Diesel fuel and dust, generators humming. 2 Rangers jogged past, full kit, sweat-soaked despite the morning chill. Someone running a weapons check nearby, the metallic click-clack of bolts being cycled. Sarah's eyes moved across the compound. Defensive positions, 4 visible, spacing adequate but predictable. The comm tower creating a blind spot on the eastern approach. She counted heads. 47 soldiers, maybe. Standard rotation. She forced herself to stop. You're not that person anymore. The Tactical Operations Center smelled like stale coffee and maps. David stood hunched over a topographical chart, radio handset pressed to his ear. Gray creeping into his temples, lines etched deep around his eyes. 3 deployments before this one. He looked 50 in this light. He didn't hear her enter. Sarah watched him work, the way his jaw tightened when static crackled through the speakers, the careful precision marking coordinates, the tension in his shoulders that never left anymore. "You know," she said quietly, "if you keep frowning like that, it'll stick." David's head snapped up. Surprise, then warmth. "Sarah!" He crossed the space in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. Coffee and gun oil and exhaustion. "I thought you weren't coming until Friday." "Caught an earlier flight." The lie came easily. The truth was more complicated. 2 weeks monitoring weather patterns and intelligence reports from the region. Something felt wrong. She couldn't articulate it, couldn't point to specific data, but the pattern recognition software in her brain kept throwing warnings. David pulled back, studying her face. "You look tired." 12-hour travel day. She touched his cheek. "You look worse." He laughed without humor. "Equipment failures. Half our surveillance drones are down. Satellite link keeps dropping during shift changes. We're running blind on the north approach." No eyes on the high ground. Communications compromised. Sarah pushed the tactical assessment away. "How long can you stay?" David asked. 3 days if the roads hold." "Good." He kissed her forehead. "I've got about an hour here, then I'm yours. Let me show you where you can drop your gear." They walked across the compound together, the sun climbing now. Mountains surrounding the base, beautiful in a harsh, unforgiving way, all sharp edges and deep shadows. The visiting quarters, a converted shipping container, 4 bunks, thin mattresses, heater space rattling when it ran. "Not exactly the Ritz," David said. "It's fine." She set her duffel on the bunk nearest the door, unzipped it, spare clothes, toiletries, a paperback she wouldn't read. And beneath the false bottom she'd sewn in 5 years ago, items she told herself she'd never need but couldn't throw away. "I've got to get back," David said. "Lunch at 12 o'clock? Mess hall?" "I'll be there." He kissed her once more and left. Sarah sat on the bunk. Boots on gravel outside, radio chatter, the distant thump of a helicopter beyond the perimeter. She pulled out her phone. Weather app.
A front moving in from the northeast, barometric pressure dropping, visibility compromised by evening. Stop, you're not on mission, you're just visiting your husband. But old instincts didn't die. They just waited.
Sarah stood and walked to the small window. The north ridge, steep, tree-covered, perfect overwatch position. If she were planning an assault, that's where she'd position primary shooters. Elevation advantage, multiple firing lanes, easy egress. A ranger walked past outside. Young, maybe 22. Same age she'd been when she made her first confirmed kill. Sarah turned away from the window. 3 years since she'd left the Marines. 3 years since Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, scout sniper, had become just Sarah, civilian, nurse, someone's wife. 3 years of telling herself she'd moved on. But you never really move on from being good at killing people. You just pretend you have. She grabbed her jacket and stepped outside. The base was waking up, shift change happening, voices carrying in the thin mountain air. Someone started a generator, diesel exhaust drifting past. Sarah walked the perimeter, hands in pockets, playing the role of a bored spouse killing time. But her eyes were working. The surveillance equipment David mentioned, she could see 2 drone stations from here, one with its housing cracked open, exposed circuitry already gathering dust. The other looked functional, but the antenna was misaligned. The northern defensive position, sandbags stacked high, good cover, but the firing angles were wrong. Anyone attacking from the ridge would have clear shots into the position from above. She passed 2 soldiers carrying ammunition crates, their conversation fragmented. 3rd malfunction this week. Telling you it's the cold. Martinez says they're ordering replacements, but equipment failures, communications issues, blind spots in surveillance. Individual problems, manageable, but together? Sarah stopped walking, looked at the north ridge again. The mountains were quiet, beautiful, waiting. Something was coming. She didn't know what, didn't know when, but every instinct she'd spent 3 years burying was screaming at her now. Something was coming, and this base wasn't ready. Sarah took a breath, let it out slowly. 3 days, she told herself. Just 3 days. Then you go home, back to normal, back to being nobody. But as she stood there in the cold mountain air, watching the sun climb higher over the ridge, she knew the truth. Normal was already gone. She just didn't know it yet. Sarah stood and walked to the small window. The north ridge, steep, tree-covered.
It happened at 13:47 hours. Sarah was in the mess hall with David, halfway through a sandwich that tasted like cardboard and salt. 6 other soldiers at scattered tables, low murmur of conversation. Someone had a radio playing country music, volume barely audible. The first explosion came from the north perimeter. The sound hit like a physical force, a deep crump that shook the building, rattled windows, sent plastic trays skittering off tables. The lights flickered. The music died. For 1 second, nobody moved. Just that universal moment of confusion, brains catching up to reality. Then the alarm screamed. David was moving before the second explosion. "Contact north!" He grabbed his rifle from where it leaned against the wall, already running. "Everyone to positions!" The mess hall emptied. Controlled chaos. Soldiers grabbed weapons, helmets, gear. Training taking over. Sarah followed David outside. The world had transformed. Smoke rising from the north fence line, a section of chain link torn apart, metal twisted, 2 soldiers down, not moving, another crawling toward cover, leaving a blood trail in the dirt. Incoming fire now, the crack snap of bullets overhead, the deeper thump of something larger, mortars maybe, RPGs. The sound fragmented in the wind, making it hard to pinpoint sources. "They're on the ridge!" A sergeant, Williams, his name tape said, shouted from behind a concrete barrier. He fired 3 rounds toward the tree line. "Multiple positions! At least—" His words cut off as bullets chewed into the barrier, concrete chips exploding. He ducked, cursed, popped up, fired again. David was at the KOC now, grabbing the radio handset. "Base Viper to Regional Command, we are under attack. Repeat, under attack. Requesting immediate support." Static. Nothing but static. He switched frequencies, tried again. Same result. "They're jamming us." He looked at Sarah, his face calculating, realizing how isolated they were, how vulnerable. "Get to the bunker, south side. Go now." But Sarah wasn't moving. She was watching the pattern of incoming fire. 3 main points of origin, high, mid, and low on the ridge, coordinated, professional. The attackers had overlapping fields of fire, creating a kill box that covered the entire north side of the base. More explosions. The motor pool erupted in flames. One of the Humvees became a fireball, black smoke pouring into the pale sky. Soldiers were returning fire, hitting nothing. They couldn't see the enemy through the smoke and distance. They were shooting at sound, at muzzle flashes, at ghosts. The wounded soldier who'd been crawling finally made it to cover. 2 others pulled him behind a wall. His leg was shredded below the knee, bone visible through the torn fabric. "We need to fall back," Rodriguez was yelling. "Regroup at—" A burst of automatic fire cut across his position. He went flat, helmet scraping concrete. David made a decision. "Williams, get everyone to the secondary line, fighting positions 3 through 7. Move!" They fell back, a fighting withdrawal, covering each other, dragging the wounded. The attackers pressed forward, their fire intensifying. A mortar round hit the mess hall. The roof collapsed inward, metal and wood folding like paper. Sarah counted heads as soldiers pulled back. 23 accounted for, 4 down or missing. She moved with them to the secondary line, a series of reinforced positions closer to the center of the base. Sandbag walls still intact, but already pockmarked with fresh impacts. The air smelled of burned wiring and fear. Better cover, interlocking fields of fire, but still blind to the ridge. David was beside her, breathing hard, blood on his face from a cut, shrapnel probably, nothing serious. "Stay down," he said. "They're maneuvering," Sarah said quietly. "This isn't random fire. They're trying to flank. They'll push from the east next, pin you here, come around the fuel depot." David stared at her. "How do you—" "Because that's what I would do." Before he could respond, new sounds. Drones. 3 of them. Quadcopters appearing through the smoke, hovering 40 feet up, cameras pointing down. Reconnaissance were targeting. Williams tried to shoot one down, missed. The drones scattered, repositioned. One dropped something, a smoke grenade. Red smoke billowing across the compound, adding to the chaos. Sarah's mind worked through the problem. The base was losing. The attackers had the high ground, superior intel, the initiative. The defenders couldn't see their targets, couldn't coordinate, couldn't call for help. The fight would be over in 20 minutes, unless something changed. The smoke and dust merged into a wall of white that erased the world. Visibility dropped to 20 feet, then 10. Soldiers fired at shadows, at movement that might be wind. "Cease fire," David shouted. "You're wasting ammo. Controlled shots only." But control was slipping. The drones kept repositioning, dropping more smoke. The incoming fire came from new angles now. The attackers moving, adapting. A squad tried to reinforce the east side, walked into an ambush. 2 down immediately. The others scattered. Sarah pressed against a wall, watching. Her training gave her a framework the others lacked. She could read the chaos, see the intent behind the randomness. The attackers were good, professional, military, or close to it. They'd coordinated their assault timing with shift change when alertness was lowest, targeted communications first. They'd mapped the base thoroughly, knew where the weak points were. But professionals had patterns, and patterns could be predicted. She watched the rhythm of their fire. The high position on the ridge, that was their anchor, heavy weapon, probably belt-fed, firing in bursts of 7 to 9 rounds, suppressive fire, keeping heads down. The mid and low positions were rifle teams, 4 or 5 shooters each, providing precision targeting. The high position fired again. She counted, 8 rounds, pause, barrel change or belt reload, 12 seconds of vulnerability. She filed it away. A soldier stumbled past her, face white with shock, weapon dragging in the dirt. The kid couldn't be older than 19. His hands shook so badly he couldn't maintain his grip. Sarah caught his arm. "Hey, look at me." He focused on her face. "What's your name?" "Peterson." "Okay, Peterson, you're going to be fine, but I need you to breathe. In through your nose, count to 4, out through your mouth. Do it." He tried, failed, tried again. "That's it. Keep going." She helped him sit against the wall. "Stay here. Keep your head down. You're doing good." She moved on. Found Williams directing fire from behind an overturned cargo container. He had a radio pressed to his ear, shaking his head for frustration. "Still nothing," he said when she saw her. "Comms are completely dead, and Jenkins just reported the east gate's compromised. They're inside the wire in 5 minutes if we don't stop that overwatch." They took out the relay station, first move before the main assault. Williams looked at her sharply. "You sound pretty sure about that." "I am." "And who exactly are you, ma'am?" David appeared before she could answer. "Williams, we need to collapse the perimeter. Pull everyone back to the core positions. We can't hold this spread with—" "If you pull back, they'll overrun you. They're waiting for that. They want you concentrated. Makes the mortar targeting easier." David turned to her, his expression complex, surprise, confusion, and something else. Recognition, maybe. Like he'd known someone he'd once known but forgotten. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" "The attack pattern. They're herding you, pushing you toward the center. Once you're grouped tight, they'll hit you with everything." "How do you know this?" She met his eyes. "Because it's textbook, and because I can see their overwatch position. North ridge, northeast face, elevation approximately 400 feet. Single shooter with a belt-fed weapon. He's calling the shots for the whole assault." Williams stared. "You can see that through all this?" "No, but I can hear him, and I can read the fire pattern." David's face was changing, the slow dawning of a terrible, impossible understanding. She watched the pieces click into place behind his eyes, her calm, her terminology, her chilling certainty. The woman he'd slept beside for 3 years was a stranger in this moment. "Sarah," his voice was different now, harder, quieter. "What did you do before?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the armory. "You said you had a backup rifle. Where?" "What?" "Your spare rifle, the one you've been cannibalizing for parts. Where is it?" "In the armory, but it's not—" "What caliber?" 7.62, but the scope is gone, and the— "I need it, and whatever optics you have, spotter scope, backup sight, anything." David grabbed her arm. "You're making no sense. What are you planning?" Sarah looked at him, really looked at him, and made the decision she'd been avoiding for 3 years. "I'm planning," she said quietly, "to give you a chance." The armory was a converted shipping container. Steel walls, combination lock, dim light from a single bulb. Racks of rifles, boxes of ammunition, protective gear stacked on shelves, everything organized with military precision. David worked the lock, pulled the door open. "This is insane." His voice was tight, controlled. "Even if you could shoot, you can't go out there. The kill zone extends—" "I'm not going into the kill zone." "Then where?" Sarah pushed past him, scanning the racks. She found the rifle, an M110, stripped down, parts missing, but the barrel was intact, the trigger group functional. The bolt worked. She pulled it down, checked the action, dry-fired once. The click was clean. "I need the scope from your quarters," she said. "The one you keep in the footlocker. Don't tell me you don't have one." David's mouth opened, closed. He had a personal rifle scope, a nice one, bought with his own money years ago. Leopold Mark V, variable magnification. He'd never mentioned it, never brought it on deployment officially. "How did you—" "David, the scope, now." He left, returned 3 minutes later with a hard case. Inside was the Leopold, 5 to 25x power. Not ideal for the range she needed, but it would work. Sarah mounted it quickly, her hands remembering the movements, muscle memory from another life. Williams appeared in the doorway, breathing hard. "Captain, we've got wounded piling up. The medic needs—" He stopped, seeing Sarah with the rifle. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" "Buying time," she said. She loaded a magazine, chambered around. "You can't go out there," Williams said. "I'm not." She pointed to a rocky outcrop on the south side of the base, lower than the North Ridge, but still elevated. Natural cover, good sight lines. "I'm going there." Williams looked back at her. "That's 400 yards from here, exposed the whole way, and even if you make it, you'll be in the open. I'll have cover from the rock face and elevation. You'll be alone." David stepped between them. "Sarah, stop." His voice was strained, breaking. "You're not trained for this. You're going to get yourself killed." She looked at him, really looked at him. "David, I was a Marine Scout sniper, 3 deployments, 2 in Fallujah, 1 in Ramadi, 89 confirmed kills. I got out after my spotter died because I couldn't do it anymore, but I can still shoot." The words landed like stones. David's face went blank with shock. "You never told me." "No. 3 years. We'd been married 3 years, and you never—" "I didn't want that to be who I was anymore." Williams was staring at her with new eyes. "Scout sniper," he whistled low. "Jesus, which unit?" "1st Battalion, 3rd Marines. You were at Fallujah, 2nd battle." "Yes." Williams turned to David. "Sir, if she's for real, we need her. The way things are going, we've got maybe 10 minutes before they push through our lines." David was still processing. His wife, 3 years married, and he'd never known. Sarah touched his face. "I'm sorry. I wanted to leave it behind, but right now it's the only thing that can help." He closed his eyes, nodded once. "What do you need?" "Rangefinder if you have one, wind meter, and I need someone to create a diversion when I move to the outcrop." "I'll do it. Give me 5 minutes to position a squad. We'll put fire on the North Ridge, draw their attention." "Make it loud," Sarah said. "I want them looking anywhere but south." Williams left at a run. David opened a locker, pulled out additional equipment. Rangefinder, compact, Kestrel weather meter, a small tactical pack. He handed them to Sarah, his movements mechanical. "How far?" he asked quietly. "My position to theirs?" "Yeah. Maybe 600 yards. Elevation advantage theirs, but the wind's in my favor now. Can you make that shot? I've made harder." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "After this, we need to talk." "I know. I mean, really talk. Everything." "I know." He pulled her close, held her tight. She felt his heart hammering against her chest. "Don't die," he said. "I won't. Promise me." "I promise." She pulled away, shouldered the rifle, gathered the equipment. At the doorway, she paused. "David, when you see me shoot, don't question it. Just use the openings I give you. Push when they falter. Understood?" "Understood." She stepped into the smoke and disappeared. The run to the south outcrop took 4 minutes. Sarah moved low and fast, using smoke for cover, timing her movement between incoming rounds. The rifle was heavy across her back, the equipment belt digging into her hip. She reached the base of the outcrop and started climbing. The rock face was steep, handholds sparse. Her fingers found purchase, boots scraping for traction. 50 feet up, 75 feet. Her breath came hard in the thin air. The ledge was narrow, maybe 5 feet deep, 8 feet wide, enough space to work. She bellied down on the cold stone, swept dust away with her forearm, set up position. The spotting scope came out first. She glassed the North Ridge, searching for targets through the smoke. Movement there. A shape behind a fallen tree. Muzzle flash. Rifle team, 2 shooters. Higher, the machine gun position. Harder to see, better concealed. But she caught the glint of brass, the shadow of a body behind the weapon. She ranged it, 637 yards, wind coming from the northwest at approximately 12 miles per hour, gusting higher. Temperature, 18 degrees Celsius, barometric pressure dropping. She ran the calculations in her head. Bullet drop, wind drift, cold air density. The math came back instantly. Muscle memory from thousands of hours on ranges. Adjust up 2.8 MOA, right 1.2. She checked the magazine. 20 rounds. She'd need to make them count. Below, Williams and his squad opened up. Heavy fire toward the North Ridge, sustained, loud. The attackers responded, shifting focus exactly as planned. Sarah settled into the scope. The world narrowed to the small circle of magnified reality. She could see the machine gunner now, just the top of his head and shoulders behind the weapon. He was wearing tactical gear, face-wrapped, professional equipment. He fired a burst, 9 rounds. Pause, barrel change coming. Sarah controlled her breathing. In, out, slow. The crosshair drifted with her heartbeat. The gunner reached for the barrel assembly. She took up the slack in the trigger, felt the wall, pressed through. The rifle bucked. The report cracked across the valley. Through the scope, she saw the impact. The gunner jerked backward, weapon tilting. He slumped over the machine gun, not moving. Sarah worked the bolt, chambered the next round. The rifle teams below had frozen, confused. Their overwatch was down. They didn't see the shot, didn't know where it came from. She found the second target. Rifle team, North Ridge, mid-position. The shooter was standing now, trying to see what happened above him. Fatal mistake. Range, 618 yards. Same wind, adjust slightly for the lower angle. She fired. The shooter dropped. Now they knew. Someone was shooting at them.
They started to move, scrambling for better cover. Their formation broke. Below, David's voice carried across the base. "Push! They're breaking! Push now!" The defenders moved forward, reclaiming ground. The pressure shifted. Sarah kept shooting. Third shot took a spotter trying to relocate. He'd made it 5 yards before Sarah's bullet found him between the shoulder blades. He went down hard, didn't get up. The attackers were reorganizing, trying to locate her position. Someone fired toward the south outcrop, wild shots, nowhere close. They knew general direction, but not specifics. Sarah shifted 15 feet east along the ledge. New angle, better sight line on the low position. She found them through the scope. 4 shooters in a cluster behind a rock formation. One was on a radio, probably trying to coordinate with the now absent Overwatch. The others were scanning, weapons up. The radio operator was the threat. She put the crosshair on his center mass. Range, 611 yards. Wind picking up, 14, maybe 15 miles per hour. Adjust. Fire. The bullet caught him in the chest. He folded forward. The radio fell into the dirt. The remaining 3 scattered, smart. They broke in different directions, making themselves harder to track. Sarah picked the closest. He was moving fast, trying to reach better cover. She led him, calculated his speed, his trajectory. Fire. Miss. The bullet kicked up dust 2 feet ahead of him. She cycled the bolt, adjusted, fired again. This time, the bullet found flesh. The runner went down, tumbling. Below, the base defenders were in full offensive now. Williams led a squad up the east flank. Rodriguez and his team pushed north. They moved with purpose, no longer pinned, no longer desperate. The attackers were falling back. Their coordination was gone. Without overwatch, without leadership, they were just individuals trying to survive. Sarah tracked another target, a heavy weapons specialist trying to set up a mortar tube. She could see the rounds stacked beside him, the targeting sight in his hands. She put a bullet through the sight. Glass and metal exploded. The specialist dove away, abandoning the weapon. The assault was collapsing. Someone in the attacking force realized they'd lost the initiative, made the call to withdraw. Sarah saw them pulling back in groups, moving toward the far side of the North Ridge where vehicles must be waiting. She let them go. Her job wasn't to kill everyone.
It was to break the attack. Below, David was coordinating defensive positions, making sure they didn't walk into a trap during pursuit. Williams had reached the north fence line, checking on the wounded from the initial assault. Sarah stayed in position, watching, making sure the retreat was real. 5 minutes passed. The shooting stopped. The smoke began to clear in the wind. The mountains settled back into silence. She safed the rifle, started the climb down. By the time Sarah reached the base, the defenders had secured the perimeter. Soldiers moved through the compound, checking casualties, putting out small fires, cataloging damage. 3 dead, 8 wounded, 2 seriously. The motor pool was gone, the mess hall destroyed, communications equipment slag. But the base stood. The defenders had held. Sarah walked through the gate, carrying the rifle openly now. Soldiers stared. Word had spread. Someone had been shooting from the south outcrop. Someone had broken the attack. She found David at what was left of the TOC. The roof had taken a mortar round. Everything inside was destroyed. He saw her coming. His face was hard to read. Relief, confusion, something else. "All targets down?" he asked. "The important ones. The rest fled." Williams appeared, breathing hard. "Ma'am, I need to know. How many did you drop?" 6 confirmed. Maybe 1 more I couldn't verify." He shook his head slowly. 6? In what, 12 minutes? 11. Jesus. He looked at David. "Sir, we need to debrief her. Full tactical rundown. They'll want details when—" "Later," David said. "Right now, we need to stabilize the wounded and establish a defensive perimeter in case they come back." "They won't," Sarah said. "Not today. They lost their leadership and most of their heavy weapons. They'll need time to regroup." "You sound confident." "I am." Williams studied her. Marine Scout Sniper. Less than 300 active duty at any given time. Most selective program in the Corps. "That's right. And you just walked away from it?" Sarah was quiet for a moment. "I got tired of being good at killing." The words hung in the mountain air. Williams nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He extended his hand. "Thank you, ma'am. You saved a lot of lives today." She shook it. "You all kept me safe. I kept you safe. That's how it works." He left to coordinate cleanup. Sarah and David stood alone in the ruined command center. "So, Scout Sniper, 3 deployments, Fallujah." "Yes." He was quiet, processing. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted to be someone else. I wanted to be just Sarah, just a regular person, not a killer." "You're not a killer." "I have 89 confirmed kills, David. What does that make me?" "A Marine, someone who did her job." "That's what I told myself. But after my spotter died, I couldn't anymore. I couldn't separate the job from who I was, so I left." "And you never thought to mention this in 3 years of marriage?" "I thought about it every day, but the longer I waited, the harder it got." She met his eyes. "I'm sorry." David ran his hair through his hair. "I don't know what to say. Part of me is angry. Part of me is, I don't even know, grateful, confused. All of those are fair. Were you ever going to tell me?" "Maybe, someday, when I figured out how." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Well, I guess today forced the issue." "Yeah." They stood in the cold, the smoke clearing around them, the sound of soldiers working filling the air. Finally, David said, "We need to talk, really talk, everything." "I know, but not here, not now." He touched her face gently. "I love you, that hasn't changed, but I need time to understand this, to understand you." "I know. Can you give me that?" "Yes." He pulled her close. She felt him trembling, adrenaline crash, delayed shock from combat. She held him steady. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving us." "You're welcome." The medevac birds arrived 90 minutes later. Twin Blackhawks dropping through the clearing sky, rotors beating the air into dust and noise. They loaded the wounded first, then the dead, body bags in the dirt, tags attached. Someone would notify families. Sarah watched from a distance. She'd given her statement to Williams, walked through the timeline, marked her shooting positions on a map, professional debrief. She knew the language, the procedures, but she didn't know how to feel. 3 years she'd been out, 3 years living a different life, and in 11 minutes she'd become what she was again, a sniper, a killer. The muscle memory was still there, the coldness, the ability to put a crosshair on a human being and press a trigger without hesitation. She'd thought she'd lost that, hoped she'd lost it, but you never lose it. You just bury it, and when you need it, it comes back. A soldier approached, young corporal, barely 20. "Ma'am, Captain Mitchell wants to see you at the aid station." She followed him across the compound. The aid station was one of the few structures still intact. Inside, it smelled like antiseptic and blood. David was there, sitting on a cot while a medic wrapped a cut on his forearm. He looked up when Sarah entered. "You okay?" she asked. "Few scratches, nothing serious," he dismissed the medic with a nod. "I wanted to, make sure you were okay." "I'm fine. Are you?" She considered lying, but they'd passed that point. "No, not really." "Talk to me." Sarah sat on the cot across from him. "I told myself I was done, that I'd put it away, but it's still there, all of it, and I'm scared of what that means." "What do you think it means?" "That I can't escape it, that I'll always be this." David was quiet for a moment. "You know what I saw today?" "What?" "My wife risking her life to save people, using skills she earned through years of hard work and sacrifice. I saw someone brave. I saw someone who's good at killing. No, I saw someone who's good at protecting. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yes." He reached across the space between them, took her hand. "You could have stayed hidden, could have let us die, but you didn't. That's who you are." Sarah felt something crack inside, not breaking, opening. She squeezed his hand. "I should have told you," she said, "from the beginning." "Yeah, you should have, and we'll work through that, but right now I'm just grateful you were here." Outside, the medevac birds were lifting off. The sound faded into the distance. The base grew quiet. "What happens now?" Sarah asked. "Investigation, debriefs, lots of paperwork. They'll want to know everything about the attack, and about you." "Will I be in trouble?" "For saving an entire base?" David almost smiled. "No, they'll probably want to give you a medal." "I don't want a medal." "I know." He stood, pulled her up with him. "Come on, let's get some air." They walked outside. The sun was lower now, late afternoon light turning everything gold. The mountains surrounding the base looked different, less threatening, just mountains. Martinez passed by, nodded respectfully. "Ma'am, sir." Other soldiers did the same. Everyone knew now what happened on the South Outcrop. Sarah felt their eyes, respect, gratitude, but also something else. Distance, maybe. She was different now, other. The civilian veneer was gone. They saw her as what she was, had been, would always be in some fundamental way, a warrior. She wasn't sure how to live with that. Night fell cold and clear. The base ran on emergency power, generators chugging in the darkness. Most of the structures were damaged but salvageable. They'd need resupply, reinforcements, engineers to rebuild, but they'd survived. Sarah stood at the south fence line, looking toward the outcrop where she'd made her stand. In the fading light, it looked smaller than she remembered, less dramatic, but she could still see the lines of fire, the angles, the geometry of death. David found her there. He had 2 cups of coffee, real coffee, not the instant garbage. Someone had brought it on the medevac birds. "Thought you might be cold," he said. She took the cup, grateful for the warmth. "Thanks."
They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Around them, the base settled into night watch routines, soldiers on perimeter, weapons ready. But the tension was different now, confident. They'd been tested and held. "Williams told me something interesting," David said.
The attackers left equipment behind when they fled. Professional gear, military grade. Someone's gonna want to know who they were. Contractors, probably, or foreign military. You sound sure. Their tactics, their discipline, that wasn't militia. That was trained operators. Which raises questions about why they hit us. What's on this base that someone would want? David shook his head. Nothing. We're a monitoring station, low-value target. Then it was a test. Of what? Response times, defenses, communications. Sarah paused. Or maybe they were looking for something specific. Intelligence, equipment, personnel. David considered that. If you're right, they might come back. Eventually, but not soon. We hurt them today. He sipped his coffee, looked at her. How do you know all this? It's what I was trained for, reading enemy intent, predicting behavior. And you were good at it. How good? Sarah was quiet for a long moment. I was selected for advanced training after my first deployment, became an instructor, taught other snipers. By the time I left, I was running entire training cycles. So you weren't just a sniper, you were one of the best. I was effective. Sarah, you can say it. You were one of the best. She met his eyes. Yes, I was one of the best. Saying it out loud felt strange, like admitting to something shameful, but also true. She had been exceptional at her job, frighteningly good. Why did you really leave? David asked, the truth this time. Sarah set down her coffee cup. There was a mission, Ramadi, high-value target. We'd been tracking him for weeks. I had the shot, perfect conditions, clean line of fire. What happened? He was holding a child, his daughter, we found out later, using her as a shield. My spotter told me to take the shot anyway, said the mission was too important. Did you? No, I let him go. David's face was grim. And? He killed 11 people the next week, a suicide bombing at a checkpoint. 11 people who might have lived if I'd taken that shot. That wasn't your fault. Was it? I had the shot. I chose not to take it. Because there was a child. That makes you human, not a failure. I couldn't reconcile it, couldn't figure out the right answer, so I left, told myself I'd never be in that position again. She looked at the outcrop. But today I was. Different circumstances, same choice. Pull the trigger or don't. And you did. I did. Because the math was clear. 6 hostiles versus 47 friendlies. Easy decision. It's never easy. No, she agreed. It's never easy. They stood together as the night deepened. Stars came out, bright and cold. Somewhere in the distance, wind howled through the mountains. What do we do now, after all this? I don't know. That depends on you. What do you mean? Can you live with who I am? Really am? David thought about it. Really thought. I don't know, he said finally. I need time, need to process. This is a lot. I understand. But I love you. That's not in question. Even knowing? Even knowing. Sarah felt tears coming, blinked them back. I love you too. He pulled her close. They held each other in the cold and dark. 2 people trying to figure out how to move forward with truths that changed everything.
3 days later, Sarah was back in her car, driving away from FOB Viper. In the rearview mirror, she watched the base shrink and disappear behind the hills. The official story was already being written. Coordinated defense, multiple shooters. The investigation would take weeks, maybe months. Her name would be in reports, but not headlines. The military preferred it that way. David had asked her to stay longer, but she declined. He needed space, so did she. They'd talk soon, figure things out, or not. Either way, her secret was out. The life she'd built was cracked open.
She'd have to decide what to keep and what to let go. The rifle was in her trunk, wrapped in a blanket. David had insisted she take it. For protection, he'd said. But they both knew the truth. Part of her needed it, would always need it. She drove through mountains and sun, heading south, heading home, or what passed for home. In her mind, she replayed the shots, calculated the angles, reviewed her performance. 6 confirmed, 1 miss. Acceptable ratio. That was the problem. She could still think like that, could still reduce human lives to ratios and probabilities. Maybe she'd never stopped being a sniper. Maybe she'd just been a sniper pretending to be someone else. The road stretched ahead, empty and long. She drove it alone. Her phone buzzed, a text from David. Investigation wrapped up today. They're calling it a coordinated insurgent attack. No mention of you by name in the official report. You're clear. Relief washed through her. She typed, "Good. Thank you for handling that. When can I see you? This weekend? I have Saturday off. I'll drive down. We need to talk, face to face. I know. See you Saturday." Rain came with Saturday. Sarah waited at a coffee shop near the hospital. Corner table, back to the wall, old habits.
David walked in at 1400 hours. Civilian clothes, jeans, jacket. He looked tired, but better than he had at the base. He spotted her, smiled, crossed the room. They hugged, held each other longer than necessary. "You look good," he said. "You look less shot at." He laughed, sat down across from her. They ordered coffee, made small talk, danced around the real conversation for 10 minutes. Finally, David set down his cup. "I've been thinking." "Yeah?" "About us, about what happened, about who you are." Sarah's chest tightened. "And I'm angry you didn't tell me. I'm hurt you kept this from me for 3 years. That's not going away overnight." "I know. But," he reached across the table, took her hand, "I also understand why you did it, and I'm grateful you were there. You saved lives. You saved me." "David, let me finish." He squeezed her hand. "I don't know if we can go back to how things were. I don't think we can. Too much has changed. But I want to try to move forward, build something new, something honest." Sarah felt tears burning behind her eyes. "You still want to try?" "Yeah, I do. If you do." "I do. But we have to be honest now. All of it. No more secrets." "No more secrets," she agreed. They sat in the coffee shop as rain drummed against the windows. 2 people who'd been married for 3 years, but were just now starting to really know each other. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard conversations, therapy probably, trust to rebuild. But they'd survived worse. This story reminds us that the people closest to us sometimes carry weights we can't see. Sometimes the quiet ones have fought battles we'll never know about. If this story moved you, drop a comment below and tell me, what's a secret strength you've kept hidden? Or who's the quiet hero in your life that deserves to be recognized? 6 months later, Sarah received a letter. Official Department of Defense letterhead. Inside was a commendation. Not a medal, nothing public. Just a letter acknowledging her actions at FOB Viper. Your decisive action under fire prevented significant loss of life and maintained the operational integrity of a critical forward position. Your service to your country, past and present, is noted with gratitude. It was signed by a colonel she'd never met. Sarah read it twice, then folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. She didn't frame it, didn't show anyone, but she kept it. That night, David came over. They'd been doing this, taking it slow, rebuilding piece by piece. He was moving back in next month. They'd decided together. No rushing, no pretending the past didn't happen, just moving forward. They made dinner together, pasta, wine, easy conversation. After dinner,
David noticed the letter on the counter. She'd left it out accidentally. He picked it up, read it. "They sent you a commendation." "Yeah. How do you feel about it?" Sarah thought about it. "Relieved that it's over, that I can move on." "Can you move on?" She looked at him. "I don't know, but I'm going to try." He pulled her close. "That's all anyone can do." They stood in her small kitchen, holding each other as night fell outside. Two people who'd been married for 3 years, but were just now starting to really know each other. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hard conversations, therapy probably, trust to rebuild. But they'd survived worse. Sarah Mitchell continued working at Seattle General Hospital, the quiet night nurse who never complained, who always showed up, who saved lives in ways no one would ever know about. David stayed in the Army, finished his deployment, came home. They rebuilt their marriage slowly, honestly. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And sometimes late at night, Sarah would dream of mountains, of a ridge in Afghanistan, of crosshairs and calculations, and the weight of choices made in impossible moments. But she didn't run from those dreams anymore. She let them come, let them remind her of who she was, who she'd been, who she'd always be. Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, Scout Sniper, Marine, and Sarah Mitchell, nurse, wife, healer. Both were true. Both were her, and she was finally learning to live with that. The mountains were quiet now. The war was over, but the mission never ended. It just changed form. From protecting soldiers in combat zones to protecting patients in hospital beds, from taking lives to saving them. Different battlefield, same dedication, same heart. She had found her way home, not to the person she pretended to be, but to the person she actually was. Flawed, strong, capable of terrible things and beautiful things. Human. And that was enough.